What's going on, everyone? I'm just a standard, typical American here today to learn and react to ridiculous jobs Queen Elizabeth actually has her staff do. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand, when you think about businesses, organizations, governments, even royalty. There's a lot of staff involved, there's a lot of moving parts. Some jobs are going to be more glamorous than others. There are lots of jobs that are necessary to do, all sorts of weird things that I probably can't even comprehend, which go into all sorts of different organizations. That being said, the title, the wording of this video clearly has a bit of a bias to it, if you will, a twist. We're talking about ridiculous jobs, and while I don't want to harp on the Queen and her giant fancy palaces and castles that she lives in, no, I'm just kidding. While I don't want to harp on any of that because she did inherit it, and it is part of a long-standing tradition, I think all in good fun, and for the sake of internet entertainment, I think it's about time we all learned what ridiculous jobs out there the Queen has her staff doing. What are these jobs? Okay, I'll settle down now, unless these jobs get me worked up again. Who knows? Anyway, without further ado.
Queen Elizabeth II employs an astonishing 1,200 people just to keep the royal household running.
1,200? 1,200? Are we saying? What do they do? I reacted to a video a little while ago about Buckingham Palace, and I'm sure in that video I learned a bit about the staff and how there's a lot of staff, and they can actually live at the palace because it's huge and has places for eating, restaurants, bars, a swimming pool for the staff. But I didn't really appreciate that there was a small civilization we're talking about here. 1,200 people? I don't even know how that even happens. I mean, I'm sure someone could explain it to me, but please don't. I don't need we don't have to get into the weeds that far. I believe you. 1,200.
The positions held by her staffers vary from cooks to chauffeurs. But as it turns out, quite a few people on the payroll are doing jobs that seem, well, delightfully bizarre.
Okay.
The master of the...
I like how she said that. Delightfully bizarre. And that's the absolute truth. I'm sure most of these jobs have a meaningful purpose to them. They're just probably a little strange, which is fine. Probably makes them interesting. Why not?
Horse position goes way back to the year delightfully bizarre.
Wait a minute.
The master of the horse position goes way back to the year 1340, according to Horse and Hound.
700 years ago. Master of Horse.
While this position would have been of importance in centuries past, today the job is an honorary one. The outlet explained, the master is no longer involved with the day-to-day running of the royal stables, but still makes inspections and rides in ceremonial uniform at state occasions.
Actually, I don't see why he wouldn't still, to this day, be in charge of upkeep and maintaining the royal stables. That actually seems like a job that really could exist today. Although they're kind of explaining that he's taken on more of a ceremonial position. Either way, I think Master of Horses not only is a really badass title, but by the way, kind of a Game of Thrones-esque Master, bring out the Master of Horses, and for the joust. And okay, I don't know what that voice is, by the way. I don't know who I'm trying to be there. This is honestly not all that bizarre. I could totally see someone still being in charge of horses. I'm sure royalty has lots of horses. Makes sense.
I think she also felt that there was a responsibility on her to maintain the bloodlines that had been established over many generations.
In 1999, the Queen appointed Lord Sam Vestey, former chairman of Cheltenham Racecourse in Gloucestershire, as the new Master of the Horse. He is the senior officer in charge of the royal stables as well as the horses and carriages belonging to the Queen. The Telegraph reported, in his role he attends important ceremonial occasions when the sovereign rides on horseback or travels in horse-drawn carriage.
So he very much still is in charge of all things horses. Logistically, like moving the horses from here to there, getting the horses where they need to go. So I'm sure his job does involve maintaining, feeding, taking care of horses. So I'm sure that is still a part of it, as well as the logistics of bringing horses to occasions for the Queen. This totally makes sense as a job.
Such as at Trooping the Colour and the state opening of Parliament. Stuart
Okay.
Parvin, who manages the Queen's wardrobe, revealed that there's a staffer tasked with breaking in the Queen's shoes. To do this,
No.
the employee dons a pair of socks and walks around the carpeted areas of Buckingham Palace. Parvin told
Wait, breaking in the shoes? There is someone whose entire job is to wear the Queen's footwear, to break them in, to wear it, walk in them, so they kind of loosen up, soften up. I mean, is that outrageous? Is that crazy? Yes. Yes, it is. I mean, if you're rich enough, I'm sorry. That's what it boils down to, right? That's probably going to be the case for a lot of these things. That is certainly a luxury, having a royal footwear. What was her title again, actually? The footwear specialist. I'm sure they do more, though. Yeah, that's a bit much. If her job is only to break in shoes. Maybe there's more to it?
the Evening Standard in 2017, the shoes have to be immediately comfortable. The Queen can never say, I'm uncomfortable, I can't walk anymore.
Angela
Okay.
Kelly is sort of unsung heroine of British fashion.
In her book, The Other Side of the Coin,
What?
dressmaker to the Queen, Angela Kelly, spilled even more details about the strange practice, writing, as has been reported a lot in the press, a
Okay.
service person wears in Her Majesty's shoes to ensure that they are comfortable and that she is always good to go. And
Wait. Okay. There's just no way this is their full-time job. There's just no way. That would be that would make it ridiculous, as the title of this is. That would just be bizarre. They have to. It's a service person. They're calling them. I'm gonna say it's someone who has other duties, and on the side happens to have the same shoe size as the Queen and breaks in her shoes as a royal treat. Is that the best way to phrase that? A royal perk? Yeah. It's not. There's no way someone just wakes up every day, wipes off their shoes, get their feet nice and perfect looking, to march their way down to Buckingham Palace just to spend all day breaking in shoes. You can only break in shoes so much. Okay, I need to stop and center myself again. I accept the existence of the footwear specialist.
And yes, I am that person. We share the same shoe size. It makes the most sense this way.
Okay.
Up until the mid-1800s, the head of the royal family travelled via the River Thames. Back then, 48 staffers dubbed Royal Watermen were responsible for rowing the royal barges in order to transport the sovereign. But
Okay.
during his reign, King Edward VII cut the number by half. The royal family's office states, the sovereign today still retains 24 royal watermen.
So this is another traditional post, ceremonial position. They had a very real job back in the day of rowing the royal barge, which was probably, a pretty sweet gig and a very necessary one if you're powering the barge, the boat, simply by manpower, by rowing. That totally makes sense. As a matter of fact, maybe we should bring that back with volunteers. Actually, pay them a ton, and I'm sure there's people who'd be more than willing to grab an oar and sail around the Queen. Why not? But are they in the modern day? Do they just sit there, stand there? They should be allowed to row if they want.
Under the command of the Queen's Barge Master,
Come on.
thereby continuing one of the most ancient appointments in the royal household.
It's quite a big thing.
Okay.
Very prestigious. And a lovely tradition as well.
But while this ceremonial team remains on staff, there isn't exactly a daily need for them. In the
Yeah.
rare instance when the royals travel the Thames, the royal watermen are tasked with accompanying the family.
So they just accompany. They are just for looks. They just stand there. I bet if you asked them, they'd almost wanna be slapped an oar in their hand and go to town. It'd be much more entertaining and probably a decent workout. Anyway, I understand this one, although it is probably the most obsolete position so far, sadly.
Of the more than 1,000 people working for the monarch, one is the Astronomer Royal. This position first came to be in the 17th century, with the Royal Museum's Greenwich explaining, "The first Astronomer Royal was charged with drawing up a map of the heavens with enough accuracy to be reliable for navigation."
This is kind of cool, actually. That is a cool position, the Royal Astronomer. Get access to all the fancy telescopes? Your job is to draw the stars? I'm surprised. I would never have come up with anything like this position. It's honestly pretty cool. Science-y. But I am curious what this individual could do now in the present day.
Although the job led to a great number of scientific discoveries, the position is mostly ceremonial today. As of 2020, astrophysicist Martin Rees holds...
That's too bad. I think some of these ceremonial positions, I'm going to end up agreeing, should be kept. But there are some positions like, I'm sorry, but the Royal Astronomer, where if no one's even seeing you, and you're not doing anything, and it's purely just to say, oh, the position still exists, we're getting into the territory of just keeping things around that aren't even that precious historically. No offense against the Royal Astronomer. Complete respect. But it seems like when a position like this has met its end, maybe you should just let it end, is kind of what I'm saying. But, I don't know, seems like a cool dude.
It's the honorary position and is thus a member of the royal household.
My professional interest has been in trying to understand cosmic phenomena and how our universe has evolved.
But...
Okay, it sounds like actually this guy is still actively, like, doing astronomy and science, so good for him. If on a day-to-day basis or whatever, he's still doing stuff, then, yeah, by all means. It's actually a pretty cool job.
Despite his credentials, working as the Queen's astronomer doesn't exactly pay well. Rees receives a stipend of just about $129 per year.
Oh.
The Queen...
Okay, then it's basically a volunteer position. He's just doing it because he loves it, and he gets a cool title. I totally agree with that. Totally cool with that. Love it.
Has her very own composer, dubbed the Master of the Queen's Music. In the past, this position was a lifelong commitment, but these days the royal family officially states that the terms have been limited to 10 years in order to allow more musicians.
What was the name of this title again? The Master of Playlists? Playlists? Is that a historical word? You might as well be the Master of Spotify. The Master of the Billboard Top 100 charts. If we're using the term playlists, I didn't know that word existed before music playlists, streaming, CDs, records. Okay. Interesting.
To get involved. BBC News explained, there are no fixed duties involved. The master may compose pieces for the royal or state occasions. While this...
Does this individual actually write music still? When you're called the Master of Playlists, it almost sounds like you're a DJ. Like you're assembling music together for the Queen. You're making a sweet playlist, top hits of the 2010s for the Queen. Now I get what that voice is. That's my radio DJ voice. I have a feeling that radio station would die immediately. But does the Master of Playlists actually compose music? Because that is a serious skill. That is extremely difficult. If he's composing original music for royalty and the Queen for special occasions, and kind of in charge of what the songs are, something like that.
This is largely a ceremonial job today. Those who've been appointed are uniquely talented. In 2004, the Queen chose renowned British conductor and composer Sir Peter Maxwell Davies, who...
Okay, it makes sense they can be a conductor as well. Okay.
Formerly headed both the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra and the BBC Philharmonic. A decade later, the Queen appointed the first ever female Master of the Queen's Music, Judith Weir, a former opera writer and resident composer with the City of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra.
So, the narrator did say this was mostly a ceremonial position. So maybe at one point in history, this had a lot more duties, real duties and meaning. Writing music for royalty or what have you. but now it's kind of like the Royal Astronomer, where it's mostly a title, maybe even kind of a voluntary position. That's kind of what I'm sensing here.
Keeper of the Royal Philatelic Collection has to be one of the oddest titles.
Keeper of the Royal Philatelic Collection? Am I saying that correctly?
Keeper.
Royal Philatelic Collection. I don't know what philatelic means, to be honest. And don't try to tell me you understand what that word means at home. I don't buy it. Nobody knows what philatelic means. It's not just me. I'm not crazy. Phility? Field of study? What? A study of postage stamps. I am learning today. I am learning. Wow, philatelic. Study of postage stamps. That is a Jeopardy question. That's a trivia question right there. Wow, thank you, video.
Of the Royal Philatelic Collection has to be one of the oddest titles to hold. Appointed
Yeah.
by the Queen, the Keeper is entrusted with maintaining her personal stamp collection.
Her personal stamp collection? I didn't know the Queen had a personal stamp collection. Did Queen Elizabeth just kind of inherit this stamp collection? Or is she actually, when she gets home, like some kind of super obsessed stamp collector running out in the middle of the night to little rummage places to sift through the thrift shops and find ancient stamps? Or is this kind of like this guy takes care of the stamp collection and brings it out to her once in a while?
Before being chosen for this position in 2003, Michael Seffi was already working for the Royals as Deputy Keeper. He explained his job, telling The Times, "The job as Keeper is part-time and the commitment is 2 days a week. My commitment to the British Philatelic Trust is the same. If one wanted to spend 3, 4, 5, 6 or even 7 days a week in the stamp room, one could, as there is always lots to do."
This guy, you've hired the right guy as the Royal Stamp Keeper. I forget the real title. You've hired the right guy when he says he could spend a week inside the Royal Stamp Room without a sweat. He's just like, no problem. I could sleep in there. I could fall asleep on the stamps. It's my paradise. You found the right guy when he's saying that.
Or even 7 days a week in the stamp room, one could, as there is always lots to do. And it's a big job because the Queen's got a ton of stamps.
Stamps act as a global advert of what's important to the people of that nation. And
right.
In this country, all the biggest royal events are commemorated.
Seffi revealed to the outlet the red albums of King...
Yeah, I'm not into stamps personally. I barely use stamps. I barely had an opportunity to even use stamps in my generation. I've done most of anything mail would do online since I was born. There were a few instances, though, so I understand what a stamp is, in case you're getting scared about whether I understand the concept of a stamp. But yeah, it really is kind of a history book, in a way, commemorating all these different times in UK history. That's a good way to look at the Royal Stamp Collection. It's kind of cool.
King George V amount to around 17,500 album pages. The blue albums of King George VI will also contain many thousands of album sheets. For a serious, dedicated philatelist, it is a tremendous privilege.
Oh my
Since
goodness.
1843, the royal household has employed the Piper of the Sovereign. According to Hello magazine, this musician plays the bagpipes at the Queen's pleasure. The Piper is also tasked with playing the bagpipes every weekday for 15 minutes beginning at 9 a.m.
The Royal, what did the title call him? The Human Alarm Clock. What a fitting description. That's funny. So, do bagpipes have some kind of deep historical significance with the UK? Britain, even? England, even? The Queen? Because to have a royal bagpiper who always plays... I mean, it's your alarm clock. I wonder if the Queen has a cell phone. It just got me thinking about how I wake up every morning with an alarm on my phone. And if the Queen is just, like, happy to live with her human bagpipe alarm clock. Probably pretty used to it. Probably likes it. I wouldn't mind it. God, that would get me up. That, when I think about it, that would get me up quick. I'd get up, slap him, say, "Shut up already, stop." And then they have to go for 15 more minutes by royal decree. Oh, okay.
According to Hello magazine, this musician plays the bagpipes at the Queen's pleasure. The piper is also tasked with playing the bagpipes every weekday for 15 minutes beginning at 9 a.m. as a wake-up call for the Queen. The Express reported...
Does he walk into her actual room like 3 inches from her face with the bagpipe? It's just... something tells me not.
The sound of the Lone Piper has played under the Queen's bedroom window every weekday since she took up her position on the throne.
Oh, under her bedroom. Gentle, the Lone Piper playing gently outside her bedroom. That actually sounds like it'd probably be a really nice way to get woken up. Americans just have this association with bagpipes. All Americans think this. That bagpipes are this loud, really harsh instrument that is just almost, for comedic, it looks really strange to us. So if it were more part of American culture, I think, I would have a really different viewpoint on it. But everything, being raised in American, bagpipes are just something we don't think about, and when we do, when we see it in American media, it's like to be silly or something. So that's kind of why I joke about this, but probably pretty pleasant when you want it to be.
Although an alarm clock would arguably work just fine, the Queen continues to employ a piper of the sovereign. As of 2020, Pipe Major David Rogers holds the title, and it's a daunting one. Former piper Gordon Webster said he had to memorize hundreds of songs during his tenure.
Wow, I mean, it'd be like being the piano player at any kind of high-class event or place. The pianist is kind of expected to know hundreds of songs. The bagpiper here, the royal bagpiper as well. I like that they have this position still. Giving a job to a musician, especially a musician who has decided to master bagpiping, which is very niche in my point of view. So I actually really appreciate this job.
Claiming
the Queen didn't like, to a certain extent, that you repeated tunes every day. I probably had about 700-800 tunes under my belt, and they're all up here.
Wow.
If you spot a swan in England, there's a good chance it belongs to the Queen. Since the 12th century, according to the family's official site, the Crown has maintained the right to claim ownership of any unmarked mute swan swimming in open waters.
What? What? Wait, no matter where you are? The royal family is just like, that's my swan there. That there, you can go like 10 miles away from find some kind of swan who wants to be your buddy. And if royalty happens to stumble upon you, it is technically their swan? What the heck?
To the Queen. Since the 12th century, according to the family's official site, the Crown has maintained the right to claim ownership of any unmarked mute swan swimming in open waters.
Okay.
All swans in the United Kingdom can belong to the Queen, but she mainly exercises this right on the River Thames.
Okay. I'm glad that she restrains herself a bit when deciding to claim swans. Very, very nice. What a random fact. I don't even know how to respond to this. It's just, when did this become a thing?
In the past, swans were considered a delicacy and were served at royal banquets. But today, the royal family no longer eats the birds. Instead, the Queen helps protect them.
Yeah, swans are, in America, are considered pretty beautiful, a sign of, like, elegance. And I certainly don't know of anyone in America ever talking about eating them. Which is interesting that that's kind of how the UK is now. But in the past, and it makes sense, when food was more scarce, things weren't as cushy and easy as they are now, where you would just eat the bird if you were hungry, especially royalty. But yeah, swans definitely have that image in America as well now.
The Queen could claim any unmarked swans throughout the country. She focuses on one stretch of the Thames by way of her Swan Task Force.
When does she find it convenient, or should I say, when does she find herself in a situation where she wants to claim a swan? Seems kind of random. Like, when, even if you had that power, when would you use it?
My name's David Barber, and I look after the swans wherever the Queen exercises her royal prerogative right.
The swan marker leads his crew of
Okay.
swan uppers each year.
I mean, she does look real happy to see that swan. It's pretty cute. I'd be pretty happy to see that swan. That's probably the most interesting thing, the most cute thing she saw all day. Okay.
On a, quote, iconic 5-day journey upriver. Upon spotting the birds as the procedure goes, they carefully position their boats around the swans, lift them or up them from the water, and check their health.
Wow, they really have a job. Like, I was kind of thinking, what the heck does the Master of Swans do? But he's out there. He's out there checking up on the swans, making sure the ones that belong to the crown are claimed. Okay.
The practice of hiring a food taster to test for poison is an ancient one.
Ah,
Roman
yes.
Emperor Claudius famously had a taster who was later suspected of murder when Claudius died by poisoning. Although it has not been confirmed by the Secret Service, it's likely that American presidents still abide by the practice. And the
Probably.
same appears to be true for the Queen.
Yeah, a food taster. Absolutely correct here. That's old as dirt, as we say, that position. If you're an important individual, people are gonna wanna get you by poisoning your food. Food taster is a historical position I'm very well familiar with, and it makes sense that the Queen would have one, honestly.
Although Buckingham Palace has not confirmed reports of an official food taster, Chef Kevin Dundon claims to have observed the custom firsthand. The chef once prepared a salmon and lamb dinner for the Queen, but said she didn't try the meal until after her taste tester sampled it.
I've always wondered, what if they poisoned the food, and the poison or whatever just didn't take effect for a few hours? That would kind of ruin the point of a taste tester. Maybe they're just there to see if it tastes funny, like they sense and taste the presence of a foreign substance, but seems like it could really actually fail, like in logistically speaking. Anyway, random thought.
Dundon told People magazine, "I produced 2 plates, one for him and one for her, and he tasted before it was served to her."
Okay.
One does not simply earn the title of Grand Carver of England, rather, one is born into it.
The Grand Carver of England. It's born into it. Why can't you earn your way into becoming the Grand Carver? What if you were the de facto best freaking carver in the country? Let that guy be the royal carver. Okay.
Even if
That could be me. I could start right now. Start training. No. Okay.
you're the go-to
I was trying to think. Why do I care so much? Let's let them explain, maybe.
person at Thanksgiving, there's no hope of becoming the Queen's carver unless you're of noble blood. The Financial Times reported, in the past, skilled carvers would serve the monarch slices of meat that were a uniform shape and thickness, and which were still hot. Today,
Okay.
the Earl of Denbigh holds the sole position as Grand Carver of England and is responsible for, you guessed it, carving meat for the royal family.
I would have thought this would just be the job of maybe any chef who's there. Anyone who works in the kitchen could do the carving. It might be a little silly, a little much to have a dedicated position as just the Grand Carver, even though that again is a super badass name, being the Grand Carver. Seems a little excessive, we're gonna say. You could just have your favorite kitchen kind of individual handle the carving when it's convenient. Anyway, if they want to have a Grand Carver, by all means, knock yourself out.
Although this may sound like a strange job, it wouldn't have been in years past. Chef and accomplished carver Mark Hicks told the outlet that the practice has become a lost art. Just as the title of Grand Carver of England is passed down through generations, Hicks misses a time when the skill was, quote, proudly passed from father to son.
There's the problem. I simply do not understand the intricacies, the nuances of carving as this gentleman does, or wishes were more commonly known. Maybe that's why I'm so critical of the Grand Carver, if I really understood what went into grand carving. I might sing a different tune. Who knows? And I'd also have to be royalty, apparently, to even entertain this position.
The royal
I guess they'll never become the Grand Carver, whoever they are.
family has been making it.
Actually, wait. I recognize one of these. Him, on the right. I recognize you. A little bit. I just don't... Prince? Something? Sorry.
The royal family has been making an effort to keep up with the times. The Queen even posted on Instagram for the first time in March 2019, but they still hold centuries-old traditions. Never mind cell phones, the Queen has roughly 450 analog clocks ticking at Windsor Castle alone.
Oh, is that what necessitates the need for a royal clock winder? That would honestly make sense if you got 450 clocks that need to be winded. My God.
The Express reported that her longtime clockmaker, Steve Davidson, even developed repetitive strain injury in his wrist after nearly 2 decades spent cleaning, repairing, and winding the Queen's clocks.
Oh my God, imagine having like a debilitating wrist injury, and I guarantee you it would happen. It did happen, as they're saying, from decades of cleaning clocks, winding clocks, little tiny fine movements. I could actually see, I was gonna kind of rag on it there for a second, but actually, that seems like it'd be hard work. Honest work, you know?
Pages of honour have perhaps one of the simplest jobs in the royal household, which is appropriate since they are kids.
Oh, train holder. I was like, the train holder? What does that mean? I don't see a train. Like a choo-choo train? A train as in a cape, or that long piece of fabric that comes off of dresses. Okay, I know things. I can be a little upscale when the occasion calls for it. Ah, there's a train on that dress. Wow, I know what that is.
Perhaps one of the simplest jobs in the royal household, which is appropriate since they are kids. According to the Daily Mail, pages are tasked with carrying the Queen's train during royal ceremonies and hold office for 2 to 3 years between the ages of 12 and 15.
This isn't ridiculous. It's on the list of ridiculous jobs. I don't think this is that ridiculous. It's clearly just made. It's something fun and interesting for kids to become a part of ceremonies, which is cool, and kind of is keeping alive that tradition. You see this at weddings and things still, so I get this.
But not just anyone gets the job. They are the sons of the royal family's friends, and their duties are tougher than they seem.
The perks of being the royal family's friends. Am I just salty that I'm not friends with a royal person? Maybe. Although, then I'd end up holding their royalty's trains. Okay, I'm okay with it.
One of the Queen's
I'm okay with, sadly not having any royal friends for now, but who knows?
page boys even fainted while she was giving a speech back in 2014.
The government will introduce a bill to bolster investment in infrastructure and reform planning law to improve economic competitiveness.
A source told the
Oh, I thought we were about to actually watch the boy faint. That would have been... I'm surprised it's not on video. That's probably, would be an interesting video to watch. With all the reactions and whatnot.
The poor boy had been standing up for some time in uncomfortable and claustrophobic clothing. The important thing to remember is that he was just doing his duty for the Queen.
Yeah.
The Queen...
I mean, he took one for the Queen. He carried the train and was a page until he could no longer stand. That's... loyalty. That's dedication. Admirable, if anything.
The Queen has essentially amassed a museum's worth of art. And according to the Royal Collection Trust, it is possibly one of the largest collections anywhere in the world, with around 7,000 oil paintings and 3,000 miniatures.
This is probably one of the most conventional jobs that would exist in any museum today, being the art overseer for the Royal Gallery or whatever. This is totally a job that would exist. So, yeah, this is not ridiculous. I decree.
In 2004, the Queen appointed Desmond Shaw Taylor as surveyor of the Queen's pictures. He told
Cool.
the Trust, "It is a huge honour to be chosen as surveyor of the Queen's pictures. The Royal Collection has a great tradition of scholarship and outstanding exhibitions, and it will be an immense privilege to be part of it."
Yeah, talk about being a part of history. My God. That is, paintings are, you know, aside from ancient locations and fossils or whatever, paintings are some of the only artifacts that you can physically kind of look at and touch and be next to as someone in this position and be like, I am inches away from history here.
You know you've really made it once you've added an on-call sculptor to your payroll. In 2008, the Queen bestowed artist Alexander Stoddart with a mouthful of a title, Her Majesty's Sculptor in Ordinary in Scotland.
This is cool, honestly. No, I think this is great. This one's great. I don't know how a lot of sculptors actually get work and get employed. They probably have to either open up their own business or find a position like this. Thank goodness they exist, where there's a royal sculptor on hand. I think that's great, giving an artist like a job to do. Yeah, that's wonderful.
According to BBC News, Stoddart is considered the leading monumental sculptor throughout Scotland. Still, he was surprised by his appointment. He told the outlet, "I am perfectly thunderstruck to receive it. I should hope to be able to match the expectations implicit in this appointment in continued association with these wonderful people, to Her Majesty's satisfaction."
Seems like a nice guy. Very humble.
Check out one of our newest videos right here.
Okay, that's it. That's the end of it. That was very interesting. The list. Thank you for that. I liked that. Okay. That was funny. That was fun. Some of those, as I thought, were not ridiculous, either because they clearly exist as part of a tradition, which is nice, or they exist because that job would just exist elsewhere in the world. So, kind of two things for... I knew when you have this many jobs you're trying to call ridiculous and bizarre jobs the Queen appoints, that it was going to be a little bit of a stretch. If I think about some of the jobs, some of the actual ridiculous ones might have been the individual who broke in the Queen's shoes, and maybe the watermen who don't actually row anymore. Let me think. The master of playlists. I'm looking back here. Oh, the swan guy. Wow. Actually, I kind of liked that one. The food taster. No, that makes sense. Meat carver. What? Fine. Clockwinder. Train, like dress. Gosh, that word confuses me. Art overseer, statue sculptor. No, most of those seem actually like pretty legitimate. There's one or two there that were kind of arguably silly. But so with that being said, I think as far as the Queen having ridiculous things going on for her, I would have expected, honestly, much more ridiculous things. Like the royal pillow fluffer or something. The royal blows on hot cheese sandwiches to cool them down person. Like really wealthy person, just totally unnecessary stuff. But we didn't really get that. We got just like a couple cool things. So it's still nonetheless a pretty interesting list. Anyway, so if you enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed this reaction, feel free to give it a like or leave a comment. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to UK things, interesting topics, themes, history, and news, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.